Hi, I'm Midge Shoemaker, and this is me reading my book, Lanoya and the Teachers of Powers. This is chapter 4, so I've read the other 3 chapters. You can go back and read them if you want. But this is chapter 4, Meeting the King. Lanoya struggled to get away from Sabine, who was tugging her hair and sticking pokey things into her head. I survived the water only to have her try to pull my hair out. Sabine stepped back and smiled. All finished, she announced. You look like a completely different child. It is amazing what a nice bath and new clothes will do. Lanoya reached for her head. It feels like someone is trying to pull my hair out and stab my head at the same moment. Sabine slapped her hand away. Nonsense. You are not accustomed to having your hair done up properly. You will get used to it. I will see to that. Lanoya frowned and twisted around. The layers of clothes hung loosely around her, and the weight pulled her shoulders down. It was like wearing a heavy blanket, a blanket I cannot wrap tight around me to keep me warm. These things just hang and let all the cold air in. I do not want to get used to it. I do not want to meet the king. I want my clothes back, and I want my blanket from my alley. At least they are more comfortable than the ones Sabine is making me wear. Sabine put her hands on her hips. You ungrateful child. I spent the morn making you presentable. The only place you are going is to see the king. He will listen to your story and decide if you get to stay here or if you will be punished and sent away. So you can just forget about some old alley. My story? What story? The one where a clumsy boy steals my blanket, a horrid man accuses me of stealing leathers, and an old tyrant destroys my palace? Or the one where you try to drown me and scrub my skin off so I can meet the king who will decide if I have to stay here or be sent somewhere else as punishment for something I did not do? I really wish that stupid boy had not entered my alley. Sabine squeezed Lanoya's arm, and she winced. You are coming with me to the throne room. You will apologize to Lady Edwima for ruining her garden, and you will not run off again. Lanoya pursed her lips and dragged her feet as Sabine hauled her through the corridors. I hope I do not have to stay with her. If the king says I do, I will climb out the window and find a place atop the walls to hide and recreate all the amazing things in this place. They entered the throne room. Sabine stepped to the side of a crowd of people filling up one side of the room. Lanoya's attention was drawn to the smooth marble floor with a long, narrow red carpet that ran down the middle of the room from the entrance to the throne. 2 steps led up to the ornately decorated chair where the old man sat with a smile on his face. Lanoya reached out her hand and traced the man's figure in the air. His cheeks were long and flat, despite his smile. He had a jeweled crown on his head, with little locks of black hair sticking out. Sabine nudged Lanoya forward, pressing down on her shoulders, and whispered, Curtsy before the king, without stepping on the carpet. Lanoya bent down, but kept her head up to observe the king and his surroundings. A woman with long golden hair sat to his right. A little boy with sand-colored hair stood on her lap and held onto the king's arm. Another boy, about Lanoya's age, stood to the left of the king. The boy looked average and boring, like her village. He did not have any interesting features to highlight or draw. Lanoya glanced back to the other side of the woman in the fancy dress. There was a small table with 2 little girls sitting and eating food. Lanoya's stomach gurgled, reminding her that it had been over a sun since she had found anything to eat. Still hunched over, Lanoya headed toward the table to see if the girls would share with her. The villager's creepy drawl made Lanoya cringe. You see, King Alfredo? It do not matter what you dress that thief in. Her still sneaking around to take stuff what is not hers. Lanoya glanced back and noticed there were people gathered around on both sides of the carpet. I wonder what all these people are doing. Are they in trouble too? Sabine's plump hand wrapped around Lanoya's arms, and she whispered, Off the red carpet. She pulled Lanoya to the side. I am sorry, my king. She has no parents, and no one has taught her how to behave. King Alfredo beckoned to Lanoya. That is all right, Sabine. Let her come up here, and you may return to your duties. Sabine whispered in Lanoya's ears, You walk up there alongside the carpet. Remember to apologize to Lady Edwima, and do what the king tells you to do. She released Lanoya and scurried out of the room. Lanoya stopped breathing for a moment. Sabine left me? I thought she was going to help me. How am I going to avoid the dungeon now? She gulped and followed the red carpet toward the king, careful not to step on it. Lanoya stopped in front of the dull-featured boy and faced the king. What are you going to do to me? King Alfredo leaned out of his chair. You look to have the same number of seasons as my son, Lord Williard. He has 10 seasons. Is that the number you have? Lanoya glanced at the boy. I do not want to have the same seasons he does. What number did that mean man from the village say before he brought me here? 11. She squared her shoulders. I have 11 seasons. King Alfredo chuckled. Close enough. He looked at his son. What would you do with this young girl? Lord Williard squinted and rubbed his chin. She is a thief. She should be punished. The king sat back in his chair. He took the little boy from the lady. And what would you do, Lord Edmondo? The little boy stuck his fingers in the king's mouth and giggled. The lady next to him chuckled. He is not quite 2. Perhaps when he has more seasons, he will answer your questions. King Alfredo sat the boy down on his lap and pointed to Lanoya. Is the little girl good or bad? The baby pointed to Lanoya and cooed, Goo girl. Lord Williard stomped his foot and pointed behind her. She stole from that man. How can you say she is good? The king turned to his eldest son. What proof has he that she stole anything? Lord Williard looked at the man. He responded, My leather's done disappeared, and I seen someone run into the alley where I found her. Lanoya glared at him. I told you I was sleeping all sun and know nothing about your leathers. King Alfredo spoke to Lord Williard. You see, my son, the man does not know who took his leathers. He did not find them on the girl before he brought her here. Now what would you do? Lord Williard glared at Lanoya and pointed to the horrible man. The man had his wares stolen. He should get them back. King Alfredo nodded. I agree, son. However, we do not have his wares to return, and neither does she. He gestured to the servant who approached him. See to it that this man is given coin to compensate for the loss of his leathers. The servant nodded and escorted the man out of the room. The king looked at Lanoya and pointed to the lady next to him. I understand you owe my bride of 15 seasons, the Lady Edwima, an apology. Lanoya glanced at the lady and back to the king. For what? Lord Williard's eyes opened wide. What do you mean, for what? You upset mother, and you must say you are sorry, or you will be banished from the palace. Lady Edwima shook her head. Banishment is a bit harsh. Do you not agree, my love? Although some punishment is in order. King Alfredo nodded. Explain why you felt it necessary to pull up the flowers. Lanoya stared at her feet. It does not matter how much I explain. No one understands. She mumbled. I sculpted the palace and used the water on the petals to reflect the stars from the heavens. She tilted her head. It was very beautiful until the mean old man ruined it. Lady Edwima scowled. A sculpture of the castle lit up by stars might be interesting. It did not warrant destruction of the gardens, nor the use of my favorite flowers. Lanoya's eyes widened. You are like all the others that do not understand anything of beauty. I did not destroy your garden. I used the flowers and mud to create something beautiful, and that old man ruined it. And I'm not sorry I did it, only sorry you did not get to see it. King Alfredo pursed his lips, and his cheeks sunk into his face. Those white flowers were my bride's favorite. Ulsted, the man who tends the garden, will now have to wait a season to regrow them. Now what have you to say for yourself? Lanoya met his gaze. They were much prettier reflecting the stars. Lady Edwima stood up. I have tried to be civil with this child and explain the error of her ways. She has no respect nor remorse for her actions. Therefore I demand she be punished for her insubordination and destructive tendencies. King Alfredo nodded. We spared you from being punished for stealing, and this is how you choose to repay us? Lanoya stared at him in surprise. Repay for what? I have not done anything wrong. I do not understand why you want something ugly when you can have so many beautiful things. Lord Williard smirked. I was right. You are trouble. An old man with white hair and a full beard approached from the crowd of people on the other side of the carpet. My Lord Alfredo, if I may make a suggestion. The king tilted his head and sighed. Teacher Lord Alon, I hope it is a suggestion for a punishment, not an excuse to allow this child to cause more harm. Lanoya glanced at the old man and sighed. Another person who is going to lie to me. Why can they not leave me alone and let me build what I see? He cleared his throat. I have seen this girl in a vision as a learner at the Chapel of Powers of the Land. I have no doubt that Starly will discern that this girl has the power of an imitator. It is her power that causes her to create or to destroy things for her own creations. He glared down at Lanoya. She will need to learn how to control it. I am certain one of her first lessons would be to draw the flowers from the garden for Lady Edwima. That way your bride will have her flowers restored until real ones can be regrown. The king looked at Lady Edwima. She replied, And what will you do with her after she has made my drawing? Return her to the streets where she could destroy more things and call it beauty? Lanoya's eyes opened wide. Destroy? I have not destroyed anything. Teacher Lord Alon stepped across the red carpet and dug his fingers into her shoulders. With your permission, I will keep her at the chapel as a learner. We will teach her how to be grateful for what she has and how to respect others and their things. She will not be permitted to steal or destroy anyone else's things. Lady Edwima nodded and sat back down. Lanoya's jaw dropped. They are not listening to anything I say. I did not steal or destroy anything. They are all wrong. They have no right to decide my fate. King Alfredo smiled. Once again, my friend, you have given sound advice. The child is your responsibility. And now if the child causes any more problems, I will let the guards find a home for her in the dungeons. Lord Williard whined. Father, that is not fair. She stole and she ruined Mother's flowers and refused to apologize. She should go to the dungeons. The little boy on the king's lap pointed to his brother. No, her goo. The king chuckled and placed a hand on Lord Williard's shoulders. Your mother and I are responsible for teaching you how to behave and how to treat others. As king, it is my responsibility to see to it that the people learn to treat others with kindness and understanding as well. No one has taught this girl any manners. How could I punish her for something she does not understand? Lanoya rolled her eyes. It is not me that does not understand. It is them. I made something beautiful, and it was ruined. They are blaming me, and I did nothing wrong. The little boy with sand-colored hair likes me. Of course, he is too young to know he is supposed to hate me like the others. Lord Williard pursed his lips and looked at the ground. It is not fair. She was wrong. The king patted his back. I know, and she will draw the flowers as an apology to your mother, and it will be Teacher Lord Alon's responsibility to teach her how to behave. If he fails, they will both be in trouble. Lord Williard looked up with a smile. I suppose that would be fair. Lady Edwima clapped her hands. Good. Now that is settled. Lord Alon, take her away and do not return without my drawing. Lord Alon nodded. I will take her to the chapel and see to it Lord Humby is aware of her orders before I return. She pushed Lanoya towards the throne room door. Once they were in the corridor, he released his hold on her shoulder. Are you going to come to the chapel willingly, or am I going to have to drag you there? Lanoya pouted and stared at the smooth, spotted flooring. I got out the window last even. If my energy does not need me to sculpt anything, I can escape. She yawned, and her stomach rumbled. Is there food? She mumbled. The old man laughed. My bride, Lady Melusa, will see that you get plenty to eat before you begin your lessons. He headed down the corridor. Lanoya shrugged. At least I can get something to eat. She trotted after him. Okay, so it's supposed to be Teacher Lord Humby, not Lord Humby, so apparently I didn't do a very good job with my editings here. Anyway, that is Chapter 4. I will try to read Chapter 5 next week. If you enjoy the book, Lanoya and the Teachers of Powers, feel free to buy it. It is on Amazon. You can get the ebook version, or the paperback version. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks. Bye.